Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of our once great cities and the third largest city in the United States of America. I'm of course once again talking about Chicago, Illinois. Chicago has a lot of great history and still lots of great people there too. I actually feel sorry for them a lot. That's why I'm trying to bring light to these terrible situations and the horrible leadership there that has caused the city to be just plagued with murder. Lots of people are dying in Chicago every week. It's like the murder capital of the whole country. And it's really, really bad. And it sucks because now we're seeing that, and we're seeing that there's these people in the public, they're saying they want to help these people. They want to help certain people specifically, like the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, is trying to support the African-American community, but they're really ignoring one of the biggest sections of the African-American community, South Chicago. South Chicago has a lot of Black people, a lot of great Americans living there, and they're suffering under this violence. And a lot of it's happening for bad reasons, bad leadership, political reasons, lots of things to do with like racism and anti-racism that actually turns into reverse racism, which isn't really a thing. It's just plain old racism, but that's how it goes. Basically what happens is these people are all woke. They all vote in Democrats. They've had Democratic leaders in Chicago for generations, and that's why the city has become so corrupt. They've had corrupt leaders. They've let the city go. They've let the criminals kind of take over and have their own gangland areas where the cops are afraid to go in because there's too many gang members with too many weapons. And on top of that, since these gangs are predominantly Black, that becomes an issue because you can't even arrest Black people in this day and age, especially in liberal areas. They'll just say you're a racist if you arrest them, even if they committed a crime. They'll also maybe arrest you or put you in jail or get rid of your job or ruin your life. Like, it's a really messed up situation. And that's why we're going to talk about a few stories about it this week. Specifically today, we're talking about a strange issue. Some of the Chicago leaders in Illinois are saying they should abolish history classes. I don't get how this is going to help. I've talked about a lot of bad things in Chicago, but I don't think history classes had anything to do with anything. I think maybe education could have something to do with it, but we're going to talk more about this story soon. We're going to go over all the details and get into the specifics, but first, let's take a moment to check out our sponsor. Did you know after the age of 20, your body produces about 10% less collagen each passing decade? The visible result ends up being an appearance of wrinkles, flaky skin, hair loss, and dirty nails as we age. That's why Ageless Multi-Collagen was created. And that's why I have this great offer for you only at healthwithnobs.com. Now, BioTrust is our secure supplier of Ageless Multi-Collagen, and you could get up to 50% off while supplies last. You're going to notice differences in your skin, your hair, your nails, everything. So check out BioTrust today by visiting healthwithnobs.com. Check out that link below. Thanks for your time, and now back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's turn to this article. It comes from a Chicago NBC affiliate. It says, Chicago area leaders call for Illinois to abolish history classes. Representative LaShawn K. Ford said current history teachings overlook the contributions of women and minorities. So very, very strange take. Interesting way to go. I gotta say, I'm almost impressed. This stupidity is actually dumbfounding. But the point I want to get to before we read on is just the fact that if education is an issue, we need to fix the schools and get people better educations and learn things. But this is not the way to go. Abolishing history is not the way to go. And trying to insert women in minority history or whatever this guy's suggesting, it's just absolutely absurd. If anything is biased in these history classes, it's definitely biased against like Americans and white people. They're calling us villains. They're misrepresenting us. They're teaching people to hate conservatives. They're saying conservatives are racist. We have lots of problems with teachers being really, really big liberal propagandists and like indoctrinating children into bad liberal ideologies. This doesn't just happen in colleges. That's where it's most famously happening, but it also happens in high school, middle school, elementary school, like everywhere down the line. These schools are run by mostly liberals, mostly a lot of female teachers who tend to lean liberal, tend to lean towards the system. And now we're talking about trying to rechange the history classes, which isn't really going to help in the long run as far as education, if we're talking about that. But more importantly, like we talked about in the intro, Chicago has way bigger problems than history class. Like, we need to fix a lot of other things there before we worry about what they're teaching about the 1950s election cycle or whatever the history class lesson they want to change. So with that said, let's read into it and then we'll have some more responses. Leaders in education, politics, and other areas gathered in suburban Evanston Sunday to ask the Illinois State Board of Education change the history curriculum of schools statewide and temporarily halt instruction until an alternative is decided upon. At a news conference, State Rep. LaShawn K. Ford said current history teachings lead to a racist society and overlook the contributions of women and minorities. Before the event, Sunday, Rep. Ford's office distributed a news release, Rep. Ford Today in Evanston, to call for the abolishment of history classes in Illinois schools, in which Ford asked the ISBOE and school districts to immediately remove history curriculum and books that unfairly communicate history until a suitable alternative is developed. So, wow, a lot to go over here, a lot to think about. First of all, I want to say the part, repeat how this stuff is already liberal indoctrinated. So I think we have to go to the point where we say it's never enough for this kind of people. Like, these people already have the bias in their favor. Like, this guy is a state representative. Let's see what party he's in, huh? Oh yeah, he's a Democrat for sure. He's a Democrat. And I mean, that's to be expected. Like we said, this area is run by Democrats, and their solutions to their problem is to stop teaching history class. So like I said, first of all, the history is already in their favor. They already have the education system and everything going their way. So this is a point where you're just like, it's never enough. They will just keep pushing and pushing until basically they're going to rewrite the American history and say that women and minorities founded the United States of America. Like, they'll totally remove all straight white men and everything that they don't like. They don't care if it's true or not. It's not about the truth. It's about spreading this propaganda for their party. So that's the first point. The next thing I would point out is they just really poorly worded this. I mean, it doesn't actually sound as bad if you just said, hey, they're going to change the way they teach history or something like that, something more specific. But when they have this release that says Ford today to call Evanstonville for the abolishment of history classes in Illinois schools. So abolishing history classes just sounds dumb. I mean, it just sounds like the silliest way to put it. And it definitely makes it sound like they're like anti-history, anti-science, anti-facts, more about feelings. But that's actually not how it explains, but at the same time, it's still just as dumb. It's probably more dumb, but I'm just pointing out the fact that they phrased it this way and they thought this would fly. And then the next thing is, I want to talk about the teachers' unions. So this is something that's come up in a lot of stories. I've seen the actual root of all evil in a lot of American society today is the teachers' unions. The teachers and the schools are actually where all these problems come from. If we could fix that and get the schools on the right track, like either remove these unions or get them fixed up, like, we could have a way better society. Not only will educations and schools be better, we'll be able to have more schools and more options for the students. So a lot of the unions will try to stop and remove like private schools or charter schools. They don't want competition. These unions typically work for the state and the public schools. So they're the ones that are stopping other schools from competing with them, which is kind of like a monopoly tactic, which isn't good because more competition means the students will get better options and get to go to the schools that will treat them better and teach things better and give a better deal, give the kids a better life and education. So teachers' unions are going to really be the problem, and that's what's going back. That's what I remind of this story. I don't think they mention it here yet, but they are talking about school and education and reframing the history. And if you just think about it, everything dominoes from there. The teachers' unions are in charge of the schools. If we educate the kids better, they'll have a better life, a better chance at succeeding instead of getting caught doing crimes or doing bad things. We can also teach kids to know real history, like what really happened in America and what really is happening. And then that'll make them less likely to be offended and to be racist and to be attacking each other and causing these riots in the streets. Like, it all goes down from there. Less crime, less riots, less racism. And so that's a good thing to point out here. I know it might not seem directly related, but teachers' unions are really bad right now. And they're actually the bigger problem that no one is really talking about. Like, besides, again, I saw Scott Adams talk about it on Twitter. Scott Adams is the cartoonist who now has a very interesting Twitter and great streams about politics and current events. The representative instead suggested that schools devote greater attention towards civics and ensuring students understand democratic processes. It costs us as a society in the long run forever when we don't understand our brothers and sisters that we live, work, and play with, Ford said. The state representative is sponsoring a bill that would require elementary schools to teach students about the civil rights movement. Okay, so I think students already learn about the civil rights movement. They learn about history and all that stuff at the appropriate time. Again, I'm not trying to defend schools because there are a lot of issues there, but I'm just not also trusting this guy's approach. This guy is a biased Democrat. He's also a minority himself. He's trying to insert himself into history more, like make himself more important. It seems really vain to me and really like not the right person to make this argument. Like it should be like historians, and we should get doctors and whoever experts to consult on when and where is appropriate and how to teach history. But the point is, teaching civil rights movement to kids in elementary school, like kids in elementary school are like 5, 6, 7, 8. I think they go up to like 10 or 12. Like they're not that old. Like kids don't learn that much history about any kind of history. Like they learn a few things, maybe like they learn, you know, the United States of America was founded in 1776, and maybe they'll learn like the capital of their state or something. Like they'll learn about like the Native Americans in their state. You know, like they might learn a few things, but the civil rights movement is more complicated and like just over kids' heads. Like that's why they teach it in maybe middle school or high school. That's where you should teach it. So the fact that he wants to bring it down to younger kids, it just seems like silly and like a misunderstanding of education and children and all the factors that need to be understood for this story. This story is obviously bogus. This is obviously another biased, terrible leader in Chicago who doesn't understand the real problems, isn't trying to help in accurate ways. And in addition, as we said from the beginning, they're focusing on the wrong issues. Like anyone that's not addressing the actual problems in Chicago with the violence and the killings and all the bad crime, like that's where we need to be focused. And yeah, sure, maybe education can help with that. Like I said, if we actually address the problems with education, like say breaking up these teachers unions who are kind of ruining things from the ground up, then yeah, maybe that will help the crime rate in the future. But there's also just big amount of crime right now. And that's like a more long-term solution. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. And until next time, have a great day.